You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. At the end of this show, you're going to get the interview that I did with Kent Babb, the author of Across the River, Life, Death, and Football in an American City. I really like talking to him. He's a nice guy. But I have to start with the Field of Dreams game. Actually, before I talk about the game itself, I want to talk about the epic journey that one writer is taking to cover the game. Brian Hoke is the Yankees beat writer for MLB.com, and he does a really good job covering the Yankees. He was supposed to fly out of New Jersey in plenty of time to get to the cornfield in Dyersville, Iowa. Unfortunately for him, the flight kept getting delayed. So at 9:22 p.m., Hoke rented a car out of Newark Airport with the goal of driving to Dyersville. That is a 1,000-mile drive. It should take you 16 hours. And that's only if you're driving non-stop. Realize you have to stop to get gas, get something to eat, use the restroom, stretch your legs. Hoke is going to need to sleep at some point, get a little bit of a power nap in. His last update at the time I'm recording this came at 11:39 a.m. He tweeted 250 miles to the cornfield. So presumably he's going to get there at like 3-4 o'clock. This guy is absolutely incredible. Okay? You know what I would have said if I was Hoke in that spot? Get someone else to cover the game for MLB.com. I'm going to fly to Chicago for Saturday. No way would I have done that drive. I understand the novelty of covering this game. I think it's a great idea by MLB. But a 1,000-mile drive? A 16-hour drive? No way! Look, I like to drive. I told you about the vacation that my parents and I did last month. That involved a lot of driving. Keystone, South Dakota to Denver, Colorado via Nebraska. That's a lot of driving. My father and I did a lot of driving that day. My mom sat in the back the entire time crocheting. We ended up driving to Colorado Springs one day. We drove to Fairplay another day. That was a lot of driving. And we were fine with it. We did it. I will tell you, it did take some convincing on my part to get my parents to agree to it. I really don't like flying. I mean, obviously I do it, but I'm really not crazy about it. So when the thought of doing Mount Rushmore and Denver came up, the first thought that went through my mom's head was, okay, what airline flies from Rapid City to Denver? I said, no, Mom, the reason I suggested Denver was because it's close enough to drive to. That drive can be done in less than a day. And we can swing into Nebraska, do a couple things there. We can all say that we've been there. It took some convincing on my part, but obviously I ended up winning. No chance on this earth would I have done that drive. Newark, New Jersey to Dyersville, Iowa. I guess Ray Liotta was right. If you build it, he will come. Hoke is moving heaven and earth to get to this game. That is absolutely incredible. Shout out to him. This game is really must-see TV. There's nothing else on. What are you going to do? Watch Steelers-Eagles preseason football? Or the Washington football team go up against the Patriots in preseason football? No. You're going to watch baseball get played in a cornfield. You are watching this game. I don't care if you love the Yankees or you hate the Yankees. I don't care if you love the White Sox or you hate the White Sox. This game is must-see TV. There's a reason that they put it on Fox. The pictures of the stadium that have been shared look absolutely incredible. When this was first announced, I heard people say, oh, it's gimmicky. What are you doing? This isn't the way Major League Baseball should be played. Look, it is gimmicky, I'll give you that, but it's a great gimmick. I mean, Field of Dreams is one of the most beloved sports movies of all time. It's in the National Film Registry. If you don't know what that is, the Library of Congress keeps a list of films that are culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It's one of the highest honors that a film can receive, getting selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. If Major League Baseball can find a way to honor that film by playing a game in a cornfield in Dyersville, Iowa, do it. I mean, I'll tell you, I haven't seen Field of Dreams in years. I know what it's about. Okay, I've seen the famous clips. I get it. I will tell you, the first time that I saw it, someone asked me what movie I wanted to watch. I said, do you have any baseball movies? They said Field of Dreams. I was really young. I'm talking like really, really, really young. Like under the age of 10, young. I didn't make it through the movie. I don't remember when I stopped watching it, but I know that I didn't sit through the whole movie. I still haven't seen the full movie. I mean, I'll tell you, for the longest time, when people asked me what my opinion was on Field of Dreams, you'd have the discussion, what's your favorite baseball movie? Mine is Major League. Other people would say mine's Field of Dreams. I said I don't like that movie. For the longest time, I used to say that. Now, I understand it. I get it. I get the lesson. I understand it. That's the kind of movie that you really can't show to a little kid. A little kid isn't going to get it. When you get older and you get more mature, you understand it better. I do want to see the movie in its entirety. It's on my mile-long list of movies that I want to see, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I should. Would have been nice to have watched it before the game. I mean, I guess there's still a little bit of time, right? After I stop recording this episode of the Jacob Valk Show, I can rent Field of Dreams on, like, Amazon or something. Maybe. I mean, I'll tell you, after the Yankees game yesterday, there was, like, nothing on TV. No sports, no preseason football, no baseball, no nothing. You know what I ended up doing? I watched the original King Kong with Fay Wray. That is a really good movie. I like that movie. You may be saying, oh, Jacob, no one cares about your experiences with Field of Dreams. No! Actually, I would vehemently disagree with that. And I'm not saying that because it's me, but the reason that Major League Baseball scheduled a game here is because they want to leverage the emotional connection that people have with this movie. Do I have an emotional connection to it? No, but I have memories of it. Some of my favorite memories from childhood are having catches with my father in my front door backyard. So I relate to the last line of the movie. The aesthetics of this are great. The NHL has proven that if you play games in picturesque environments, people will watch it. The Winter Classic, the Stadium Series, those games are fun to watch because you see things that you never see otherwise. So how can Major League Baseball do that? Oh, I know. By actually playing a game in a cornfield in Iowa. I mean, I'm trying to think about what other baseball movies you could do this with. None are coming to mind. A big part of Field of Dreams is Kevin Costner tearing up part of his farm to build a baseball field in the hope that people will come. There's no other movie like that. There are other great baseball movies, there's no question, but how could you make a game out of it? If you'll recall, this game was originally announced in 2019. Then the coronavirus happened. Rob Manfred, in his infinite wisdom, decided that the game would go on, except instead of Yankees White Sox, it would be Cardinals White Sox. I mean, what do the Cardinals have to do with that movie? If you were gonna do it, make it Cubs-White Sox. The Iowa Cubs are a thing. They exist. They've been the AAA team for the Chicago Cubs since 1981. The game was scrapped last year, thank God. Now we're getting it with the original matchup, Yankees-White Sox. This is the right choice. The White Sox had to be the home team because of Shoeless Joe Jackson. And the Yankees are the Yankees. If you're going to play a one-off baseball game in a location of big significance, the Yankees should be involved. The Cubs would have made sense, but the Yankees are the Yankees. Also, you probably don't want to lose the fervor that comes with a Cubs-White Sox game by putting it in Dyersville, Iowa, as opposed to Chicago, Illinois. This field is going to hold less people. You're going to inconvenience everyone, all the Cubs fans and White Sox fans who look forward to this matchup every year. I understand why this matchup was Yankees-White Sox. I mean, I'll tell you right now, this game is really important for both teams. It's obviously important to the Yankees because they're fighting for a playoff spot. Every game matters. They're playing great baseball right now. They just won their series against the Royals. They want to start this series off against the White Sox on the right foot. But this game is important to the White Sox too. Not just because of playoff seeding. The White Sox are going to win the AL Central. We all know that. We just don't know if they're going to be the 1 seed in the playoffs, the 2 seed, or the 3 seed. More than that, though, this game is important for the White Sox because you don't want to lose this game. This is a big deal. This is nationally televised. This is the Field of Dreams game, something that we've been talking about for 2 years. You're playing in a cornfield in Dyersville, Iowa. If this becomes a regular thing, like once a year the White Sox will play a home game in Dyersville, and I don't know if it will, I don't know if it won't, you still want to win the first one. Like the first game at the new Yankee Stadium, the Yankees really wanted to win that game. Start the season off on a high note when people are looking up the stadium on Wikipedia or Baseball Reference and they're looking for the first game. You want to be able to say that the Yankees won that game. I was there. The Yankees lost. The Indians beat them. There are certain games that you want to win more than others. It's indisputable that both teams are going to go all out to win this game. There are some games where managers are like, let's wait until tomorrow. We don't need this one. The baseball season is a marathon, not a sprint. I can promise you that both Aaron Boone and Tony La Russa are going to go all out to win this game. It's going to be a great game. I commend Major League Baseball for coming up with this and figuring out a way to do it. This is going to be a lot of fun. I wish I was there. The pitching matchup is Andrew Heaney versus Lance Lynn. Obviously, that favors the White Sox. But for some reason, maybe it's my Yankees fandom, I think the Yankees are going to win this game. Moving on now to Brewers-Cubs. And I want to talk about the best pitcher in baseball that you don't know about. That's Corbin Burnes. This year, Burnes is 7-4 with a 2.23 ERA. Okay, that's all well and good, but why are you talking about him? Because Corbin Burnes did something yesterday that has only been done twice in Major League history. Once by Aaron Nola, the other time by Tom Seaver. If you can be mentioned in the same breath as Seaver, you're doing something right. Burnes struck out 10 straight Cubs. He struck out the side in the second inning. He struck out the side in the third inning. He struck out the side in the fourth inning. And he got Frank Schwindel to strike out to start out the fifth inning. Matt Duffy broke the strikeout streak with a single. Funnily enough, the next batter was Greg Deichmann. He struck out. So Burnes struck out 10 straight and 11 out of 12. It doesn't get much better than that. All 10 strikeouts were forward-facing Ks in the scorecard. That's right. All the Cubs swung at strike 3. They just couldn't make contact. For whatever it's worth, Deichmann struck out looking. But for 10 straight Cubs to strike out swinging, it doesn't get any better than that. I understand that the Cubs are now putting out a really bad lineup. Outside of Rafael Ortega, no one in that Cubs lineup yesterday would scare me if I was a pitcher. Nico Horner scares me, but he's hurt right now. But these are still major league hitters. They're still putting on a major league uniform. They're some of the best baseball players on earth. To strike out 10 straight is nothing short of incredible. I mean, I'll tell you, Burnes right now is tied for second in the National League in ERA. He's tied with his teammate Brandon Woodruff for second place among all qualified pitchers. Walker Buehler is leading the pack. Burnes is going to get some Cy Young votes. Should he win? The answer is no. He would not get my vote. My vote would probably go to Buehler. Tied for third in wins, leading Major League Baseball in winning percentage, leading the National League in ERA. I just don't see how Buehler doesn't win. Burnes will get some votes. Zach Wheeler will get some votes. Julio Urias will get some votes. Jacob deGrom may get some votes. Although I think we can all agree that deGrom doesn't deserve it this year. Okay, he hasn't pitched enough to qualify for the ERA leaderboard. He's pitched less than 100 innings this year. He only started 15 games. He was on his way to winning it, but now he can't. He'll get some votes, but Walker Buehler is the right choice for the NL Cy Young Award. As for the American League, at this very moment, my vote would probably go to Chris Bassett. He's tied with Hyunjin Ryu for leading the American League in wins with 11. He's 4th in ERA, 6th in strikeouts. It's possible that can change. I may change my vote to Garrett Cole. I may change my vote to Lance Lynn, Robbie Ray, whoever. But at this very moment, my vote would probably go to Bassett. Moving on now to Chris Davis calling it quits. He is done trying to rehab from all his injuries, the knee injury that he had last year, the lower back injury, hip surgery. He's done. He's calling it quits. He's still going to get his big contract. It's absolutely amazing how far Davis fell after receiving that mammoth contract. After 2015, when he led the majors in home runs with 47, he had 117 RBIs, played in almost every game, had a .262 average, a .361 on base percentage. Davis was rewarded with a 7-year contract worth $161 million. That's $23 million a year. It wasn't universally liked. There were some people who questioned the logic behind it, but overall, I think everyone understood it. Lock this guy up long term, who's led Major League Baseball in 2 of the last 3 seasons. Some people disagreed with it, but overall, I think the sentiment was, okay, this makes sense. Davis will be fine. Oh, how wrong they were. Throughout the life of that extension, Davis never hit over 221. He only finished with over 30 home runs once. From 2016 to 2019, he struck out over 130 times. In 2019, he struck out 139 times. He only played in 105 games. It's a fair bet to say he would have struck out more if he played in more games. In 2018, Davis hit 168. That is the lowest batting average in a single season in Major League Baseball history. From late 2018 to early 2019, he went 54 straight at-bats without getting a single hit. Let's do some quick division. Let's say you're getting up 4 times per game. That means that he went 13 games without getting a single hit. But realize, we're talking at-bats. We're not talking plate appearances. So that's not counting walks, times that he reached on an error. Maybe there was a catcher's interference. I don't know. You're making $23 million a year and you go over 54. That's inexcusable. This is a guy who almost assaulted his manager, Brandon Hyde. Chris Davis is the textbook example of a guy getting his money and then just not trying anymore. That's the only explanation for how he fell off so stark of a cliff. For the Orioles' sake, I'm glad that he retired. The Orioles actually cleared some payroll because they were able to restructure some of the deferrals that he had in his contract. Unfortunately, he still gets that money. So really all you're doing is just kicking the can down the road. This is Bobby Bonilla all over again. I mean, I understand the logic behind contract deferrals. It makes sense. But if you're going to do it, you better know that it's going to work. Like if Gerrit Cole wins multiple Cy Young Awards with the Yankees and multiple World Series with the Yankees, if the Yankees decided to defer some of his salary to 20 years from now, no one would say, why did the Yankees defer that salary? Hey, they needed to get Cole. They made the payment schedule a little easier for themselves, and Cole worked out. Guys like Bobby Bonilla and Chris Davis, though, that can haunt teams for a long time. I know that Orioles fans are happy to see Davis call it quits. Moving on now to the Panthers, signing Sam Reinhart to a 3-year extension worth $19.5 million. And this is a great move. The Panthers traded for Reinhart's RFA rights not that long ago. So obviously he was basically guaranteed to be a Panther for the foreseeable future. But to lock him up for 3 years at a very reasonable rate, $6.5 million, I have no problem with that. Reinhart has put up 4 straight 20-goal seasons. From his rookie season on, he's only missed 20 goals once. He had 17 goals that year. His career low in points came last year for the Sabres, a dreadful Sabres team. He had 40 points in 54 games. That's still pretty darn good. Sam Reinhart is a really, really, really good player. I wouldn't call him great, because he hasn't won anything, but he's incredibly talented. This is a great move for the Panthers. They're going to be a really good team next year. Yes, I know I've been skeptical of Sergei Bobrovsky in the past, but I'm a big Spencer Knight fan. If Bobrovsky can't get the job done, Knight will. I promise you. The Panthers will be good next year. No question about that. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. Specifically on the Raptors signing Isaac Bonga. A guy who I've always liked. Like, coming into the league, I thought he could have been a poor man's Ben Simmons. Definitely not as good of a scorer, but a good defender, a really good ball handler, someone who could set up his teammates. Realize, Bonga's 6'8". He can guard multiple positions. I've always liked him, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out so far. I mean, with the Wizards the past couple seasons, Bonga had a chance to really cement himself as a true option in a rotation. He really didn't. But realize, he's young. He's only 21. The Raptors are going to give him a legitimate chance to come off the bench and contribute. They're not playing for anything this year, so sure. Sign a young player like Bonga, someone who still has some potential, and see if you can fix him. I have no problem with that. This move makes a ton of sense for the Raptors. Alright, here's my interview with Kent Babb. You're listening to the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I am fortunate enough to be joined by Kent Babb, the author of Across the River, Life, Death, and Football in an American City. Kent, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, my pleasure. So, my first question can also serve as a brief overview of the book. Why does Bryce Brown stay as Edna Carr High School's football coach, which is in the terrible neighborhood of Algiers, Louisiana, when his goal for his players is to get them out of Algiers?
Well, that's sort of the ultimate irony, I think, of Bryce, is that he actually did the one thing he tells his players to never do, and that's come back. Like, so he played college football. He got out of Algiers, of New Orleans. You know, he got his shot, you know, to play college football and to never come back. But he did come back. You know, his family still lives there, and in fact, he still lives only 3 miles away from his childhood home. Like I said, I mean, he implores these kids to never do that one thing. Like, he wants to get them, you know, across the river out of New Orleans for good, because he sees it as, you know, full of danger, blight. There's nothing for them there. And I think the reason he stays is because he feels necessary. And, you know, it's hard, you know, to say this now because, you know, I've gotten close to him, you know, telling his story, but I think he's right. You know, and, you know, this is a world with a lot of Joe Thomases, with, you know, like, he's the protagonist, a young linebacker who's had an almost unbelievable childhood, and there's not that many Bryce Browns who provide consistent leadership, mentorship, a sounding board, food in some cases. So I think that's why. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's this double-edged sword. You know, I almost wish he would get out, but I almost wish he wouldn't too.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. It is a double-edged sword. No question about that. Great way of putting it. So, what are some of Brown's unconventional coaching methods?
I mean, the most, I guess, jarring one, at least at the beginning for me, is Pride Panel. And the concept of it is not unconventional. It's just communication and honesty. But what they do is, every year there's a 14-player leadership team. It's like a tribal council of players who are smart, ambitious, yes, are good players on the field, but are generally just reliable people. It's more of a character thing. But they get together every day, usually late at night, in part because Bryce Brown has studied advanced interrogation techniques and military intelligence, and has found that people are less willing to lie if they've been deprived of sleep. So one of the Pride Panel sessions I sat in on started at 12:30 a.m. Another one went until 5 a.m. when they had to be on the field the next day at 8. And the whole purpose of it is just sort of to go around, ask everybody, hey, was today's practice more good than bad or more bad than good, and why? Explain yourself. And there's no right answer. Whatever you say is wrong, and coaches are going to, sort of jump on you for it and confront you and have you show your work. And they cuss at them. I mean, they use profanity. They insult them sometimes. It's a very, very uncomfortable. I witnessed a scuffle between a player and a coach the first night of Pride Panel. And, this is not harsh. It's not brutal. It's not, it is to the outsider, but it's designed to make these players uncomfortable. It's designed to have them defend themselves and get used to, being forced out of their comfort zone and de-escalate a situation. So they're basically using this as like a psychological conditioning exercise. They want to make them uncomfortable. They want to rattle their cage. And then the players have to deal with it. They have to talk their way out of it. They have to de-escalate before it becomes a huge problem, because that's what eventually, they might be asked to do, like on the streets or during a traffic stop. Everybody deals with adversity. Everybody deals with people messing with them or rattling their cage, making them uncomfortable, belittling them. But how do you respond? And that's what they're working on.
No question about that. So, unfortunately, Brown has had numerous deaths among his players. Does one haunt him more than others?
This is a person whose biological father, his best friend, and his former quarterback, Tonka George, have all been murdered. In fact, they're all buried in the same cemetery, which Bryce, for reasons that I speculate on in the book, drives by every day, sometimes multiple days, though he never sets foot in this graveyard. Tonka's death in 2016 changed Bryce, and it changed how the Carr program is run. This is one of the most successful football programs in the whole state of Louisiana, maybe in the whole country. And just keep in mind, Louisiana produces, a per capita rate of NFL players unlike any other state in the country. So this is the highest level, one of the highest levels of football in the state. When the book begins, they've won 3 consecutive state championships. They've been in 10 out of the last 11 state championship games. One of those was in 2010 when Tonka George was the quarterback. He was almost a supernatural leader. He was very charismatic. He could get in somebody's face if they needed that. He could be compassionate if the person needed that. They got to the state title game almost entirely on the skinny shoulders of Tonka George. And this is a kid who did everything right. He went to college, got his degree, but he made one mistake, and that was coming home to see his mom. And he was walking in his neighborhood one June evening in 2016, and somebody noticed him, a car followed him, and they killed him. And the people or the person or people inside murdered him. And, nobody even to this day knows why or who was responsible. And, Bryce went to this crime scene, and standing there, he sort of made a decision. He's only in charge of, a handful, maybe 100 young lives. But what if he could change those? What if he could take, this small community of people and change how they view the world, teach them not just like how to win football games, but also how to survive, how to thrive, that they're not just capable of amazing things, but they're worthy of them too.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So on the flip side of that coin, Brown has also had numerous success stories. Is there one in particular that stands out?
He's had a lot of players who've gone to play college football. He became the head coach in 2015. And so just this year, Ray C. McMath became a draft pick for the Tennessee Titans out of LSU, but it's still kind of early for him. But as far as, his true mission, I think it's like his real relentless mission as a coach is to keep these kids alive, which he's done. That seems like such a basic thing that, why would you have to put your time in on that? But this is also a community. This is a city. New Orleans is a place where in 2016, the year Tonka got killed, a young 18 or 19-year-old black male was 56 times more likely to die by gunfire than the national average. And look, even today, Jacob, this is a city where gunfire rains out at any time of day, in any neighborhood. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, black or white. The last 2 Saturdays, There have been a combined 10 shootings on Bourbon Street. This is the economic tourism nerve center of that city, and people are opening fire on Bourbon Street. And so his true achievement, and this is crazy to even say, is just keeping these kids breathing and putting them to college. From 2017 to 2019, he had over 36 kids sign college scholarships. And maybe the bigger thing for him is he's tearing these kids down to their psychological studs and then rebuilding them to understand that they can survive not just a city like New Orleans, but anywhere. They're capable of going to get a college education, of getting a great job, of doing anything that they want, not just in sports or music or whatever they grew up believing that only they could do. They could do anything in the world. And he's not just saying this is possible. He's teaching them step by agonizing step, how to do it too.
Right. You brought up that Brown needs to keep his players alive. That's his core mission. That is actually the next question that I have written down. The segue is perfect. Specifically, what are some of the ways that he keeps his players alive?
I mean, this seems really basic, but just keeping these young people inside. For one, they have these marathon, excruciatingly long practices, and it seems brutal. I mean, to me it does. But one of the reasons for that is if people are outside, that's often where gunshots ring out. That's a lot of times. I mean, it's rare or rarer for somebody to get killed inside their house in a place like New Orleans. But if you're outside walking around, particularly when the weather is warm, that's when just sort of standing on the sidewalk can get you killed. And so, he basically runs out the clock. He exhausts them. And then when they go home, he doesn't go home and watch TV or go to sleep. A lot of times he drives around in his truck, this dented up Silverado he drives, and that's sort of his mobile command center. I mean, a lot of evenings he will call almost every player and make sure that they made it home. Are you hungry? Do you need anything for tomorrow? In truth, that's a way to calm his anxious mind, because he's still fearful that every time his phone rings, is somebody going to tell him somebody's dead. It's a way for him to remind himself every night that he's doing something, and that he can sleep knowing that everybody is alive today. Tomorrow may be completely different, but right now, at this moment, everybody's alive.
Okay. All right. So how does Brown deal with players who quit and then want to return to Edna Carr?
So he teaches every player, he treats every player not as an archetype or a generality, but an individual. So in the case of Ronnie Jackson, who was the star running back of the 2018 team, which is the source of the original story that I wrote in the Washington Post, Ronnie, he quit every team he was ever on. I mean, he was allowed to quit. If anybody got in his face or made him uncomfortable or made him do something he didn't want to do, he said, okay, I'm out. I'm not playing for you anymore. And they let him go. And he's one of these young people who, a lot of times we do this in this country. We tell at-risk young people, hey, you're going to be dead or in prison by the time you're 18 years old, 20 years old. Man, in this community and communities like this, and I would say even in the country, that's not inspiring. It's self-fulfilling. Because if I'm going to be dead anyway by the time I'm 20 or 25, I might as well go get this money. I might as well sell drugs, live fast, have fun. I'm not going to school. I'm sure not going to college, and I'm not going to work hard. So Ronnie just quit. His whole thing was just okay, if you make me uncomfortable, I'm out. Well, Bryce wouldn't let him quit. The coaches would not let him quit. They would physically drag him out of a house. One time he dispatched Nick Foster, who's sort of the consigliere of the program, to go looking for Ronnie when he didn't show up for practice. He went house to house to house and dragged him outside, got in his face, and took him to practice. And he quit, a dozen times over the years. And Bryce says it's not just your decision to quit. You don't get to decide on your own when you're finished. So for the first, that shows that they invest in these people emotionally. You're not just on an island. You're not alone. You're part of a community. And sure enough, Ronnie graduated and went to college and still plays college football today. He can't quit and hasn't quit.
All right, Kent, I'll get you out on this. Why does Brown instill the value of respecting their own property into his players?
Because you earned it. Everything that you have, everything that you've been granted, can be taken away. It can be stolen, it can be destroyed. Your home, if you have a car, the weight room, which at the school is in pretty rough shape. Like everything that Bryce has and is in control of, it's not new. These are not amazing resources or facilities, but what you have, get the job done. And the very least thing you can do is just respect it. You can respect what you had because somebody had to work for this, and somebody had to put their time and sweat into moving these weights or this bench or whatever, this equipment. Somebody cleans this helmet. Somebody washes these jerseys. So you better respect it. Don't take this for granted, because if you do, he'll take it away.
All right, Ken. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, Jacob. Thanks so much, man. Have a good one.
You too. That was Kent Babb. His book is Across the River, Life, Death, and Football in an American City. Thanks for listening. Here comes the outro. Thanks for the plug, Jacob from the past. It does mean a lot. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk. And always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.